Hey guys, Lori here, pharmacist. So I just wanted to bring up some things that I've discovered as I've had these conversations with the good doctor. And, it's amazing how people that are so educated don't have a basic understanding of U.S. history. And so he's continued to say things to me like how serious measles is, and how can you not say this isn't a serious condition? And so it's made me dive into U.S. Bureau of Vital Statistics and pull out the history books and say, hello, let's look at this. So I just wanted to do that again for you guys because I want to show you how much the media has an agenda. And anyway, you need to be aware of that. You need to understand U.S. history. You need to know where to go to look for it so that when you do your own research and make your own decision about what you're going to do for yourself and your family as far as vaccination, that you are armed with actual facts and not just media hysteria, Chicken Little, the sky is falling kind of thing. All right, so I had sent him this is U.S. Bureau of Vital Statistics. This is a graph from the 1900s to 1960. Now, what's interesting about this is that the measles vaccine, MMR, came out on the market in 1963. So this is pre-measles vaccine. And if you look at this graph, you can see, and then this is death, okay? This is mortality of the measles per 100,000 people. By 1940, we had hit 1 out of 100,000, and by 1945, we were approaching 0. So we were hovering, if you look at the line at the bottom, between 0 and 1 death by measles out of 100,000 people in 20 years before the vaccine was ever introduced onto the market. However, folks, we needed a vaccine. We were in desperate, it was a desperate situation. Well, what he brought back, he refuted me with graph of measles cases. He said that has nothing to do with, it's the measles cases that is the issue. So he gave me this graph, or sent me this graph, and I printed it out. And what this is showing is that this graph begins in 1954. So in 1954, we were at about 700,000 cases of measles in the U.S. In 1958, it spiked, that's the high point there, you can see, to 778,000 cases of the measles. Then it took quite a dip, and about the time, well, you got to understand the 1963 vaccine, the first was kind of an epic fail, but so we didn't really have a huge drop until the second vaccine came out, which is in 1968. You see this huge drop from 450,000 cases of the measles down to less than 50,000, and then, it continues on. Well, that's interesting, The thing they don't tell you on this graph when all this peaking is going on is the population of the U.S. So if you look up the population of the U.S. in 1958, when we were at 750,000 cases of the measles, it was almost 175 million people, 174.9, according to the powers that be that keep track of that. All right, so that means that, and I also want to point out, this is reported cases, because if you read what the CDC has to say, they say in the decade before the vaccine, there were an average of 500,000 reported cases of measles. Again, reported means they were sick enough to show up to the doctor or felt like the need to go to the doctor. So 3 to 4 million cases, that means 2.5 to 3.5 million cases never even got on the record because they weren't sick enough to visit the doctor. However, out of the 500,000, 400 to 500 people died. That's They say 1 in 1,000. It's actually 1 in 1,000 to 1 in 1250. But the point is, of 778,000 at the all-time peak there that we see out of 174.9 million people, that means 0.4% of the population that got the measles and reported it is what was affected by the measles. 0.4, not even 1%. You got to understand that. Less than 0.5% of the people in the U.S. reported the measles. And I don't know what the death rate was then. The CDC says 400 to 500 out of 500,000. That's a pretty small number there, people. But we needed a vaccine. The interesting thing too is if you continue on, and I'm going to post this for you all. It's like an 887 page PDF of from 1940 to 1960 off of the U.S. Bureau of Vital Statistics. But it gets pretty interesting because this is measles. You see, in 1940 we dropped off. Now, what was going on in the 1940s? Well, we were cleaning it up, guys. We had clean water. We were sanitizing the water. We had antibiotics coming out like penicillin, sulfa drugs, that kind of thing. So healthcare was improving, sanitation was improving, but of course they paint the picture to look like the vaccine is what was the lifesaver and life changer for everybody, when actually in 1940, as I'll say again, was when we saw the huge decrease. Now this is tuberculosis. The decrease isn't quite as sharp as the measles, but as you can see, tuberculosis decreased. What else? Now this is sexually transmitted disease, syphilis. That took a huge sharp drop. Dysentery, dysentery, I don't know how you say it. It's a intestinal disease, diarrhea, that kind of thing, related to unclean water and unsanitary conditions. That took a huge dive. Diphtheria. Now, we did have a diphtheria vaccine, and I'll be honest, I'm not really sure what the coverage rate was at that point. We started using DPT. I can't remember. I think it was in the 1950s. But anyway, again, diphtheria took a nosedive. What else? Typhoid fever. Good old typhoid fever. We've never vaccinated here for that, but that was following the same trail. Influenza and pneumonia. You see the spike there where we had the huge pandemic there in 1920, but after that, it's not zero, but it certainly took a dive along with everything else. Then we have gastritis, duodenitis, enteritis, and colitis, all intestinal type of things related to unclean water, fecal matter in the water. I don't know why polio wasn't included in this. I have to research that because, to my knowledge, it took the same dive along with the others. So many things here you see that we weren't vaccinating for. And what do we attribute their sharp reduction to? Well, of course, clean water, sanitation, antibiotics, that kind of thing. But when it comes to our good old buddy, the measles, oh no, it was the vaccine. Yes, it was. All right, another thing the doctor did was send me this article from the New Yorker. I'm gonna wrap this video up with this. This is really long. I'm going to condense it, but I'm gonna tell you a few interesting things as I dissected this. So this came out August 26, 2019. It's entitled The Message of the Measles. And it's basically saying that public health officials confront the largest outbreak in the U.S., and we're talking less than 1,500 people, and we're at 329 million plus as a population. Do that staggering math and, take a seat. Largest outbreak in the U.S. in decades. They've been fighting as much against dangerous ideas as they have against the disease. So anyway, I start reading this thing, and I did not know this, and this is kind of, you're going to find this really interesting, because everything with this measles outbreak has been blamed on the anti-vaxxers. It's some unvaccinated child out there that got the measles and has spread it, right? Well, it actually turns out it's some child from Israel. They don't give the age of the kid, but what happened, he was actually a vaccinated child. But he hadn't gone to school the day that they were giving the booster of the MMR. And so in some unfortunate way, because, you know, the vaccine, we have to keep giving boosters now. It's not, the effectiveness wanes. They found out when they first came out with this vaccine, they said it's a one-shot deal, literally. Time has proved that that is not the case. We gotta keep re-administering that thing, baby, for it to take. Because it's nothing like the wild measles where it's a one-shot deal, you're done. But anyway, this kid gets the one or however many vaccines of the MMR he'd had. It doesn't say, but that he didn't get that booster because he was sick. Then he comes over to the U.S. He's in a synagogue that's got, I don't even know how many people, and that's where he spread the disease, okay, or the measles. So it says that the measles is, this article says, the measles, often called the most contagious disease on earth, is an airborne virus. If a person with the measles walks into a room, the pathogens can linger there for 2 hours after the person is gone. In the New Square Shoal, this meant that as many as 7,000 people had shared airspace with the young man from Israel. 7,000 people. You know, I just don't understand, if measles is the most contagious disease on earth, how in the name of anything did we go from 778,000 people, 0.4% of the population, to less than 0.2% of the population in the years to follow? It just seems like before that vaccine, it just should have been a, sharp increase. People, this is the prime example where what they're telling you does not line up with reality. Hello? He goes on to say some other things that are not true. I know this is shocking. He says the rate of hospitalization is about 1 in 5, mostly owing to pneumonia. Okay, what is a pneumonia? It's an opportunistic secondary infection, which means your immune system is weakened, and so therefore pneumonia comes on, and that's, people that die of the measles don't die of the measles. It's a secondary infection as a result of a lowered immunocompromised system, okay? But he says 1 in 5 is the hospitalization rate owing to pneumonia, and the mortality rate is about 1 in 1,000. Mortality rate of reported cases when before the vaccine, 2.5 to 3.5 million people didn't even report it, weren't sick enough. If you look at what the CDC has to say, the 1 in 5 is actually, I don't even know where he got that number. In the decade, this is the CDC, before 1963, that's 10 years before 1963, when a vaccine became available, nearly all children got the measles by the time they were 15 years of age. Okay, then it goes on to say it is estimated. Now what I find interesting, nearly all children got the measles by the time they were 15 years of age. Let's say that again. Nearly all children got the measles by the time they were 15 years of age. Did they follow it with, and a third died? Did they follow it with a quarter of them died? Did they follow it with many were hospitalized, sickened beyond able to continue life in a normal manner, and therefore had medical bills that continued for the rest of their lives? No. Just nearly all children got the measles. It was life. It's the way it was, okay? Then it says it is estimated 3 to 4 million people in the United States were infected each year. Also, each year, among reported cases, an estimated 400 to 500 people died. 48,000 were hospitalized. Full stop. Wait a minute. 500,000 reported cases. 48,000 were hospitalized. That's less than 10%. How did it jump to 1 in 5? When did that occur? And you know what? I know where he got his information off the CDC website, because they have another place you can click on, and they've upped the ante, if you will, on their information. But this is, again, folks, why you have to look at U.S. history, okay? And you have to look at the actual facts, not believe propaganda. Who are trying to sell medications, vaccines, etc., so that you can make your own informed decision for yourself and your family. I'm not sure what else. Oh, I know. Another section of this article, I'm going to wrap this up here. He talks about a pamphlet that got spread to parents, warning them about the things in vaccines like monkey kidneys, rabbit brains, pork products, and aborted fetuses. Definitely not kosher. But then he says, but the MMR vaccine doesn't contain those things. This is the author of this New Yorker article that the doctor sent me. He titled his email, "Read this if you dare." I pointed out to him that his little buddy there who had written this article obviously didn't get proper information on the MMR. It does, in fact, contain WI-38, which is aborted female fetal cells, the cell fibroblast, okay? It's right there in black and white under description. If you look at the MMR2 vaccine insert, package insert, which is what we're giving to children this day and age. So, again, informed consent. What can I say? All right, love you guys. Any questions? PM me, LoriLove77 @gmail.com. Love you. We will talk soon.